So big news in the ride-hailing world this weekend.
Yeah, pretty big.
Bolt, the European ride-hailing company, they just launched in the UAE.
They sure did.
What do you think that means? Like for them, for the UAE, for, people who might want to use them? I mean, isn't that just kind of another Uber?
Well, it's interesting because they're not exactly easing into the market, are they?
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean, they're coming in with this big promotion. For new users, 53% off your first 7 rides for the next 2 weeks to celebrate their launch and, National Day.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they're really trying to make a statement.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit more about Bolt. I mean, I know they're big in Europe, but what's their story?
Well, they've been around for a while, actually. Founded in 2013 in Estonia.
Estonia, wow.
Yeah. And get this, they started as Taxify.
Taxify.
Yeah, rebranded to Bolt in 2019. And since then, they've, kind of exploded.
It's exploded, yeah.
They're now operating in over 500 cities across, Europe, Africa, Western Asia, even Latin America. I mean, they've got over 150 million customers.
Yeah.
And more than 3 million drivers and couriers.
Wow, that's incredible growth.
And, they're not stopping there. They're aiming for an IPO in 2025.
Okay, so they're ambitious. But back to the UAE launch. What does that tell us about their strategy? I mean, why the UAE?
Well, think about it. The UAE, it's a hub, right?
A hub, right.
For tourism, for business. The population there is large, diverse, and let's be honest, pretty wealthy.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So it's a lucrative market, definitely, for any ride-hailing company.
Sure. It's like tapping into a whole new pool of potential customers.
Exactly. Plus, the UAE is known for, being tech-savvy. They like new things, new technologies, new services.
They're early adopters.
Exactly.
Well, hold on. Didn't Bolt have some, legal trouble recently?
Oh, yeah, in the UK.
Something about, how they classify their workers?
Yeah, exactly.
A legal challenge.
And that could cost them, what was it? A lot of money. Yeah, potentially, 200 million.
Wow.
So, expanding into new markets like the UAE, it's a way to, diversify.
Diversify, yeah, I see.
Bring in more revenue from different places and maybe offset some potential losses from that UK case.
So it's not just about growth, it's about, strategic positioning, too.
Exactly.
Okay. So it makes sense for Bolt. But what about the UAE? Why is this good for them?
Well, the UAE has this whole vision, right?
Right.
To be a leader in sustainability.
Yeah, I heard about that.
They want to be a climate-neutral nation by 2050.
Ambitious.
Very ambitious.
And bold. I mean, they're all about electric vehicles, scooters, that kind of thing.
Right. And that aligns perfectly with the UAE's vision.
Okay, so it's a good fit.
It's a really good fit.
But how does that actually, benefit the UAE? I mean, it's not just about looking good, right?
No, not at all. Think about it. By operating in a country that really prioritizes sustainability, Bolt can showcase their green credentials, attract those environmentally conscious customers, not just in the UAE, but globally.
Right. It boosts their image.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a win-win for Bolt and the UAE.
Yeah, definitely. Bolt gets access to a new market, enhances their image, and the UAE gets another player in their, sustainable transportation ecosystem.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's be real. What does this mean for people in the UAE, like me, you? What does it mean for customers?
Well, the best part is more competition, it usually means what?
Better deals.
For us. Exactly. And Bolt is known for their competitive pricing. I mean, they often undercut companies like Uber.
Really?
Yeah. So, we could see lower fares in the UAE.
Okay, that's good news for everyone who uses ride-hailing. I mean, who doesn't want to save some money?
Exactly.
But it's not just about price, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, when companies have to compete, they also have to, step up their game.
Right. Provide better service.
Yeah, exactly.
So we might see improvements in, wait times, driver professionalism, maybe even the range of services they offer.
Like maybe more options for electric vehicles or those scooters you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
And that ties back into the sustainability thing we were talking about.
Absolutely.
So it's like giving people more tools to make, more sustainable choices.
Right.
Okay. So that's great for riders. But what about the drivers themselves? I mean, how does this impact them?
Well, one thing that's interesting about Bolt is that they're known for offering lower commission rates to drivers compared to, say, Uber.
Oh, really? Yeah. So the drivers actually get to keep more of their earnings?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's a direct benefit for them.
Right.
And with Bolt coming in, potentially more demand for rides, I mean, that could lead to more earning opportunities for drivers, especially for drivers who are already using electric vehicles or those who are thinking about making the switch. I mean, it seems like Bolt, with their focus on sustainability, they could be the, platform of choice for those eco-conscious drivers.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about the money.
What do you mean?
Well, Bolt, they've talked about, being committed to creating a fair and supportive environment for their drivers.
Oh, okay, so treating them well.
Yeah, exactly. That's crucial, especially in the, gig economy where worker rights can sometimes be a concern.
That's true. But of course, actions speak louder than words.
Right. We'll have to see how it plays out in the UAE.
But it's good that they're at least acknowledging the importance of, driver well-being.
Yeah, definitely. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it all ties back into the UAE's vision, a more sustainable and equitable society.
Okay, I'm starting to see how it all fits together.
It's a complex picture for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So Bolt's arrival, it's not just about shaking up the ride-hailing market. It's about becoming part of this larger movement towards sustainability in the UAE.
Absolutely. They're not just providing a service, they're contributing to a broader vision.
Okay, that's a really interesting way to look at it. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. We've talked about the benefits for Bolt, the benefits for the UAE, what it means for customers, for drivers, even, the potential economic impact.
Right, it's a lot to unpack, but like with any big change, there are probably some challenges and concerns too, right?
Of course. Every development has its complexities.
Okay, so what are some of those? What should we be thinking about as Bolt gets settled in the UAE?
Well, one thing to consider is the impact on those existing ride-hailing companies in the UAE. I mean, Uber has been the dominant player there for a while now.
Right, so how will they react to this new competition?
Exactly. Yeah, and competition can be a good thing, right, for consumers like us.
Right, more choices, hopefully better prices.
Exactly. But it also means these companies have to, work harder to keep their customers happy.
So we might see like even more discounts, better service, maybe new features on their apps.
It's definitely possible. And this kind of competition, it can actually drive innovation in the whole industry.
That would be pretty cool. So it's not just about the UAE, it could have a ripple effect on, ride hailing globally.
It's true. But for now, let's focus back on the UAE. We've talked about what Bolt's arrival means for the company, for the country, for riders. But what about the drivers?
That's a good point. I mean, they're the ones who are actually, out there on the roads making this all happen.
Exactly. And like we said earlier, Bolt is known for offering those lower commission rates compared to, say, Uber.
Right, so the drivers get to keep more of their earnings.
Exactly. And with Bolt coming in and hopefully more demand for rides, well, that could mean even more earning opportunities for drivers.
Yeah, especially for those who are already using electric vehicles or thinking about, making the switch. Bolt being so focused on sustainability, it seems like they could be the go-to platform for like environmentally conscious drivers.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, the money.
Oh, right. You were saying earlier about how Bolt has talked about creating like a good environment for their drivers.
Yeah. A fair and supportive environment. And that's really important, especially in the gig economy, where, sometimes worker rights can be a concern.
For sure. But like I said before, actions speak louder than words. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out in the UAE.
We will, but at least they're acknowledging the importance of, treating their drivers well. It's a good sign.
Okay, so potentially good news for drivers, but let's bring it back to this whole sustainability thing.
Right.
We've talked about the UAE's goals, their net zero by 2050 vision. How does Bolt actually, contribute to that?
Well, the UAE is already doing a lot to reduce their carbon footprint, right? They're investing in renewable energy, green buildings, all those things we talked about. And Bolt, with their electric vehicles, well, they kind of fit right into that strategy.
Like another piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And, if they can incentivize more drivers to switch to electric vehicles, that's going to have a real impact.
Less reliance on fossil fuels, lower emissions. It all helps the UAE get closer to those net zero targets.
And it's a reminder that sustainability, it's not just about big government initiatives,
Right. It's about the choices we make as individuals, too.
Exactly. So choosing to ride with a company like Bolt, well, that's a small action, but it can contribute to a larger movement.
Okay, so there's a lot of potential for positive change here. But let's be realistic. I mean, are there any downsides, any potential challenges we should be thinking about?
Of course. I mean, no development comes without its complexities.
Right.
And one concern is, the impact on those existing ride-hailing companies in the UAE, like Uber, for example.
Right, they've been the dominant player for so long.
Exactly. So Bolt coming in, it could really shake things up. And while competition can be good for consumers, leading to better prices and all that, it also needs to be managed carefully. We don't want to see like these price wars that end up hurting the drivers or lowering the quality of service.
That's a good point. It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. And another potential concern is, the impact on traffic congestion. If Bolt gets really popular, if everyone starts using their services, that could mean more cars on the road.
Especially in a city like Dubai, which, already has its share of traffic.
Right. So it'll be important for Bolt and, working with the local authorities to figure out ways to, mitigate that congestion, make sure their services are integrated with the existing public transportation networks.
So encouraging people to use public transport when it makes sense, maybe promoting those shared rides, things like that.
Exactly. It's about finding a holistic approach, right? One that
Hmm.
benefits both the riders and the city as a whole.
Right. It sounds like a complex balancing act.
It is, but it's a challenge worth tackling if we want to create, those sustainable and livable cities for the future. And it all goes back to the UAE's net zero goals.
It's not just about reducing emissions, it's about creating a more sustainable, more resilient society.
Exactly. And transportation, it's a key piece of that puzzle. So, as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's worth leaving our listeners with a few questions to ponder.
Okay, hit me with those questions. What should our listeners be thinking about?
Well, how can we make sure that the growth of, the ride-hailing industry, it actually contributes to the UAE's sustainability goals? And what role can, everyday citizens play in shaping the future of transportation in their communities?
Those are some big questions.
They are, but they're important questions because the future of transportation, it's not preordained. It's shaped by the choices we make, both individually and as a society.
Okay, so it's up to us to create a system that's, equitable, accessible, and environmentally responsible.
Exactly.
Now, let's get into some of the details of Bolt's launch in the UAE. They've started operations in Dubai, right?
Right, which makes sense. I mean, Dubai, with its high population density and its reliance on ride-hailing, it's a natural starting point.
And they're coming in strong with those discounts, those incentives for new customers.
Oh yeah, that 53% discount, it's definitely eye-catching. It's a smart way to, get people to try out their platform, gain some market share quickly.
But it's just the first step, right? I mean, they've already said they're planning to expand to other Emirates soon.
Yeah, this is just the beginning for Bolt in the UAE. It'll be interesting to see how they adapt their services to the specific needs of each emirate, how they compete with the existing players in those markets.
Speaking of competition, how has Uber been reacting to Bolt's arrival?
Well, they haven't been sitting still, that's for sure.
Oh, really? What have they been doing?
They've also been ramping up their promotions, offering their own discounts to, try and hold on to their customer base.
So it's the battle of the discounts right now.
It kind of is. But ultimately, it's the riders who benefit. More choices, better prices. It's a good situation to be in.
But it also means that both companies, they have to, keep innovating, find ways to stand out from the crowd.
Exactly. We might see, new features, better safety measures, maybe even a race to the top when it comes to sustainability.
That would be amazing. A win for everyone.
It would be.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential impact on the UAE's economy.
Okay, so beyond the ride-hailing industry itself.
Right. We talked about job creation, investment in the electric vehicle sector, but are there other economic implications to consider?
Definitely. For one thing, this increased competition in the ride-hailing market, it could lead to lower transportation costs for businesses, for individuals.
Okay, so people have more money to spend on other things.
Exactly. And that could have a positive impact on overall economic activity.
It's like a ripple effect.
It is. And another thing to consider is that Bolt's growth in the UAE, it could actually attract international talent and investment.
Right, because if Bolt establishes a strong presence in the region, it could become like a hub for their operations in the Middle East.
Exactly. And that could bring in skilled workers, create new business opportunities, further diversify the UAE's economy.
So it's a win-win for both Bolt and the UAE.
It really is. And it just highlights how interconnected the global economy is.
Right.
Decisions made by companies in one part of the world, they can have these ripple effects in other regions.
And in this case, those ripple effects could be really positive for the UAE, for their economic growth, for their journey towards sustainability. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We talked about the implications of Bolt's launch For Bolt, for the UAE, for the customers, the drivers, the economy as a whole.
And we've talked about the challenges too, right? The
Yeah.
potential impact on those existing ride-hailing companies, that risk of increased traffic congestion, the importance of, making sure those drivers are treated fairly.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. But it's an exciting development, and it'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit now. We've talked a lot about Bolt, but I want to get back to the UAE's bigger picture, that sustainability journey they're on.
Yeah, it's really impressive what they're doing.
It is. I mean, we've mentioned their net zero by 2050 goals a few times, but what does that actually look like on the ground? How are they trying to achieve that?
Well, they're taking this multifaceted approach, it's not just about one thing.
Right, it's about reducing emissions across the board.
Exactly. They've got this strategy. It's called the UAE Net Zero 2050 Strategic Initiative.
Okay, so what's in that initiative? What are they actually doing?
Well, they're focusing on like 6 main areas: power generation, industry, transportation, buildings, waste management, even agriculture.
Wow, they're really thinking about everything.
Yeah, they're taking a holistic approach because, every part of the economy contributes to their carbon footprint.
Okay, so give me some specifics. What are they actually doing in each of these areas?
Well, let's start with power generation. They're really shifting away from fossil fuels big time, investing heavily in renewables like solar, wind.
So harnessing that desert sun.
Exactly. They've got the perfect conditions for it. And they're also focusing on energy storage, making the most of these intermittent sources.
Right, because the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow.
Exactly. And it's not just about producing clean energy, it's about using it efficiently, too.
So less waste.
Right. They're implementing these stricter building mandates, for new constructions, and they're encouraging retrofits for existing buildings to make them more energy efficient.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because if you use less energy in the first place, you don't need to produce as much. Now, in the industrial sector, they're doing some really cool things too.
Like what?
They're promoting the use of alternative materials, exploring carbon capture and storage technologies.
Carbon capture, that sounds pretty futuristic.
It is. It's basically capturing those carbon emissions before they even reach the atmosphere.
Wow. Okay, and what about transportation? I mean, we've already talked about their push for electric vehicles, but
Yeah.
is there more to it than that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're investing heavily in public transportation, making it more efficient and appealing so people will actually use it. Dedicated bus lanes, expanding the metro lines, that kind of thing.
So giving people options.
Exactly. And they're also big on cycling infrastructure. They want to encourage people to, hop on a bike for those shorter trips.
I can see it now, Dubai, a cycling city. Okay, so what about waste? I mean, everyone produces waste.
Right. But it's about what you do with it.
Yeah.
And the UAE, they're really promoting recycling, composting, moving towards that circular economy where waste is seen as a resource.
So let's go to landfills.
Exactly.
And what about agriculture? I mean, that's not something people usually think about when they think about climate change.
It's a big part of it, though. And the UAE, they're encouraging these climate-smart practices, water-efficient irrigation, drought-resistant crops.
So making the most of their resources.
Exactly.
Wow, it's really impressive. They're not just talking about sustainability, they're actually taking action.
They are. And it's creating this really favorable environment for companies like Bolt, that share those sustainability values.
So Bolt coming in, it's not just a business decision. It's aligning with this bigger vision.
Right. They're not just providing a service. They're becoming part of the solution. And, their focus on those electric vehicles, on micromobility, it directly contributes to reducing those emissions from transportation.
Which is a huge part of the UAE's net zero strategy.
Exactly. And their commitment to affordability, making those rides accessible to everyone, that could make a big difference too. Because sustainability, it shouldn't be a luxury, right?
It should be an option for everyone.
Exactly.
It's really amazing how everything connects here, Bolt's business model, the UAE's goals, what people choose to do, and this potential for, real global impact.
Yeah, it shows that we're all part of this larger system. And the decisions we make, even those small, everyday choices, they can add up and make a real difference.
So to wrap things up, I mean, this has been a fascinating deep dive. We explored Bolt's arrival in the UAE, their sustainability journey. We talked about technology, about government policies, individual choices, how it's all connected. I think it's given us a lot to think about.
It has. And I hope it's left everyone feeling, hopeful and empowered. Because the challenges we face, they are big, but we can overcome them with, innovation, with bold actions, with a collective commitment to change.
We can create a future where, prosperity and a healthy planet, they go hand in hand. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new, that it sparked your curiosity.
Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep making those choices that align with your values.
Because the future, it's in our hands. It's up to all of us to create a world that's sustainable, equitable, accessible for everyone.
And that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.